Mental Wellness 101, keeping it together without losing it. Ever feel like your mind is like a computer with way too many tabs open? You're just one more tab away from the crash. Today, we're going to learn how to close some of those tabs and not lose it in the process. Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Angel, and I have a PhD in psychology, and I own a private practice. And I talk about mental health from a practical, strengths-based, and very nerdy perspective. Today, we're going to introduce mental wellness and provide some practical, relatable ways to maintain it. Mental wellness isn't about avoiding stress. It's about handling stress like a boss. Mental wellness is a resilience, not perfection. In fact, perfection doesn't even exist. So, what is mental wellness and why does it matter? Mental wellness is a proactive, strengths-based approach to life. And mental wellness is focused on resilience and balance and emotional well-being. Mental wellness is like a workout for your mind. It takes practice, but it pays off big. So think about going to the gym as the workout for your body. It takes time to make those muscles. You have to go often. You have to have a good regimen, and it pays off and it makes a stronger body. That's what mental wellness does for us. So why is it so important anyway? Because mental wellness absolutely impacts everything about us. It impacts our daily life, our relationships, our ability to manage stress, our confidence, our mental flexibility, our overall happiness. It's important that we destigmatize the concept of mental health. We need to normalize mental wellness as something everybody should prioritize. This is just not for someone who might have some mental health challenges. We all are mental health beings as human beings, and our mental health should be something we take good care of. So how do we do it? Well, we're going to talk about building our mental health wellness toolkit. And the first thing it starts with is a little something called self-awareness. When we're talking about self-awareness, it's like taking that mirror and looking at it in the front of our face. We're looking inward and we're reflecting back at us. So oftentimes we go through life and we're looking out the windows of life and we're looking at what other people are doing or not doing. And boy, do we can have some opinions about that. But it's kind of rare that we take that and put that mirror back in and really look inside ourselves. And so self-awareness is about recognizing our emotions, about looking at our stressors, what are our personal needs. And this is the first tool that we can do to start looking at mental wellness. And so some simple things we can do that can help us with that self-reflection can be things like journaling or a daily check-in. Because knowing ourselves is the beginning of all wisdom. And that's from Aristotle himself. So take some time for that self-reflection and be honest with yourself. I often say we lie the loudest when we lie to ourselves, and so many of us are lying to ourselves because we're just not aware and conscious of what's really happening inside of us. Some stress relief tools. So we're going to talk about, there's a lot of tools we can talk about, and this episode is kind of an overview episode. It's not going to be exhaustive by any stretch of the imagination, but we're going to talk about some great tools, things like deep breathing exercises, mindfulness, or even just taking simple 5-minute breaks throughout the day. Anything that we can do that will kind of help our body feel a little bit better and our mental health feel a little bit better can be a great tool for us. And because each of us is so different and so unique, the amount of tools that exist are almost limitless. There's so many things that we can do. So if you can't change the situation you're in, you can change your breathing, and a slow, deep breath can reset your whole perspective. The next thing we need to kind of talk about is our boundaries and saying no. Boundary setting is essential for mental wellness, and it's vital for us to give ourselves permission to say no and not feel guilty. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to a happier us. Boundaries is a form of protection to us, to our mental health, to our emotional health, to our time, to our energy, to our finances, to our family. We use boundaries in other ways and we don't feel guilty. However, when we start to use boundaries in some of our personal or professional relationships, maybe our family relationships, or even church relationships, we start to feel really guilty, like we're being super selfish and we shouldn't say no to something because we could do it. But just because we can do something doesn't mean we should do something. And that's where having boundaries can be really important. Think about it. You leave your house every day. And I bet for most everybody watching this episode, you'll lock your front door. Probably even in this day and age, set an alarm on your house. Do you get in the car and feel guilty about that? Do you think, gee, now people can't just come in my house and take my stuff and use all my things and they might need it more than me. No, we're not thinking that. Because we're protecting our house. We're protecting what's ours. We're protecting our family. We are protecting our belongings in that. And boundaries is nothing more than like locking our front door in our house when we leave. Because we continually give what we don't have. And we're so overwhelmed and we don't know how to get back on top of it. And so many people are so weary and doing great things for everybody but themselves. And so learning how to start building those boundaries and to see boundaries from a different perspective, from a place of protection and not a place of being selfish or mean. So boundaries are the bridges to having a happier, healthier life. The next thing we need to look at is our support system. It's imperative that we surround ourselves with people who uplift us rather than drain us. Funny, when I work with kids, there's a cute little children's book called The Bucket Dumpers and Bucket Fillers, and the whole concept is really about people who uplift and people who drain in a different way for a child. We need to differentiate between someone who uplifts us. So an uplifting person, they have more positive energy. They bring positive energy into our interactions. They may feel happier. They may see things from a more optimistic perspective. We feel supported. They will listen to us or offer encouragement or genuinely care about like our well-being. They're the people who ask us how we're doing and actually listen for the answer. I can't tell you the number of times I've had a conversation with somebody and they say, oh, how you're doing? And I say, oh, wow, things are really bad right now. XYZ just happened. And they're like, oh, that's nice. And right into their narrative. That's not supportive. Also, our supportive people, they're inspiring. They motivate us to be our best self and they help us see our potential in ourselves. They respect our boundaries and they understand when I need space or you need space or time. Just to deal with yourself or to deal with things going on in your home or just to take a break or unplug. Now, draining people. Draining people have a negative energy. They often bring negativity into all of our interactions or most of the interactions. They leave you feeling exhausted or down. Oftentimes, they're self-centered. They're so focused on their own problems and their own needs that they often neglect yours. They're not really listening when you're having conversations to them. They may be very critical. They may criticize you or belittle you or make you feel like you're less than or you're less confident or less valuable than they are. And definitely they may disrespect your boundaries. They may just flat out ignore your boundaries and demand your time and energy even when you're not able to give it. In essence, someone who lifts you up will leave you feeling energized and valued, while someone who drains you will leave you feeling depleted and very unappreciative. So how do we deal with that? Take a look at the people in your life. When you get a text from a person, when you see their number on your phone or a call, do you feel the lump in your stomach? You're probably dealing with a draining person. Or do you feel that little burst of excitement or that little burst of happiness or that little smile on your face? You're probably dealing with a supportive person. And so taking a look, and it's not that we're burning bridges and kicking those people out of our lives. It's that we can recognize who is where and what role do they have, so that we know how that we can balance things for ourselves. Also, we want to up our game in some coping strategies and use tools. We want to ground ourselves. We want to help take our thoughts and reframe it. So often we see things, and the first thing we see is the negative thing, or the worry, or the fear, or the what ifs going through our mind. And so when we want to stop and look about how do we take that thought and reframe it? So, what if it's the positive? What if this works out well? What can we gain from this, even when it's a challenge? We want to take that to help us manage our everyday stresses. And it's really all about the little things. I tell people all the time, the little things are absolutely the big things. It's our daily habits. It's the things we do every day that helps us to maintain our mental health balance. Sleep, 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 and more sleep. Sleep is so vital for mental clarity and emotional stability. We need to have a relaxing bedtime routine. Yes, I'm not just talking to our little kids anymore. Adults, we need a relaxing bedtime routine. We need time to stop our evening, to wind down, to do our self-care and our hygiene activities, to help our body know I'm taking care of me. Bedtime routines is a great place for us to get some of that self-love in and that self-care in that helps us to handle the next day, and so that we're not backlogging ourselves with more stress and feeling less than. Bedtime routine also helps our body know when it's time to kind of start the wind down, and helps it get into that predictable routine so it knows when to go to sleep. Sleep is like the number one thing a lot of times people talk about. I don't get to sleep. I lay in bed and I just think, and I solve all the problems, and I replay all the conversations in my head all night long, and I just can't sleep, and I lay there and I lay there and I lay there, and then I scroll social media, and I'm on the TikToks, or I'm on the YouTubes, and I'm listening to them all night long, and I just can't sleep. Let's start by just making a simple bedtime routine. Moving our body is also something that can be really helpful. Just little movements. I'm not even talking about like committing to an exercise program. I'm talking like take a walk, step outside, move around a little bit, get some cold water. That can help boost our mood and help us reduce stress. Don't overthink it. Just get moving. Dance, walk, stretch, whatever works for you. That's what you need to do. Also, we need to take a look at our intake of our mind and body. What are we taking in? And I'm not just meaning food, but I am meaning food, but I'm meaning all the things we take in. We need to feed both our body and our mind with positive and healthy things. Things that are nutritious, things that are helping it to learn and to grow and to feel good about it. What kind of media do you consume? We are what we feed our mind, just like our bodies are what we feed our body. And so we need to stop and look at, what do I feed my mind with? Am I constantly watching or listening to social media, or am I listening to the news, or am I listening to like things that make me feel more fearful or more worried? What am I feeding my mind with? Am I looking at everybody else's lives and I see how wonderful they are, and I look in the mirror and I think, my goodness, my life just sucks? We need to watch what we're feeding our mind. We're our worst enemies. And so when we can just take a look and take a break, even if we can just stop the negativity and reduce it down, it'll make a big difference on our mental resilience. And I know this is one that's kind of a cliche because we hear it talked about so often, but practicing gratitude really has some science-backed benefits. And so things like keeping a gratitude journal, or just having a moment where you talk about what you're feeling grateful for that day. Practicing gratitude is so important, and it positively impacts our mental health and our physical well-being. So gratitude can boost our feel-good chemicals in our brain. It can regulate stress. It can train our brain to be more attuned to positivity. So it's looking for the good instead of looking for the bad. It can enhance neural connectivities in the parts of the brains associated with social bonding and improve self-esteem and our confidence. Gratitude reduces a multitude of toxic emotions from envy to resentment to frustration and even regret. So keeping that gratitude journal can improve your sleep quality. It can help you look for more grateful relationships, and people with gratitude experience less physical pain and report feeling healthier than other people. Gratitude also can help enhance our empathy and reduce feelings of aggression, making us more likely to have healthier relationships. So, tip, if you're stuck, start by naming one thing that made you smile today. Starting small can go a long way. Remember, it's in the little things that we do every day that makes such a difference on our mental health and our mental resilience. Also, setting some small, realistic goals. Mental health can boost our mental health when we achieve small things, have daily wins. So oftentimes people will come in with really big, wonderful goals, but they get so overwhelmed in the process of those goals that they're buried under an avalanche, and it just becomes a huge stressor for them. So we want to avoid overwhelming ourselves, and we want to set simple goals. Keep it simple. I'm not saying we're going to ignore the big goals. Those are important too. However, the little things become the big things. And so keeping little goals, breaking down bigger goals into smaller goals can also be really helpful, because we need to have that sense of accomplishment, that sense of success, because that is what becomes contagious and builds our confidence and our well-being and helps us to energize ourselves into the next steps of what we're working for. So mental wellness is really that proactive care. This is what we do before we have the problem. And the stronger we can build that mental resilience in this moment, the more it'll help us get through the difficulties, the struggles, and the obstacles that life brings. Building that toolkit, it's important to have it now. The more we have a toolkit, that we use the toolkit, the more we'll be able to utilize that toolkit when we really need that toolkit. And it's consistent things. So remember, mental wellness isn't about having it all together or knowing how to bring yourself back together when things get a little messy. So the next episode, we're going to dive into some stress management and why feeling chill is actually a superpower. Stay curious, be kind, and keep your mind nerdy. That's a wrap.